You're listening to Procurement 6, the weekly podcast from the team at Art of Procurement that summarizes this week in procurement in just 6 short segments.
Hi there. My name is Kelly Barner, and today is Friday, January 24th, 2025.
6.
With this past Monday being Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the United States, this week's tip comes from him. Quote, "All labor that uplifts humanity has dignity and importance and should be undertaken with painstaking excellence." I would make the case that the work of procurement and supply chain is labor that has the ability to uplift humanity. By making products and services more affordable, by making them more available, and by being effective stewards of corporate resources, we have the opportunity to improve the quality of lives and communities. Because that is true, we also have an obligation to approach that work with painstaking excellence. Even if it is 1 penny at a time, the value can add up quickly and make all the difference in the world.
5.
In this week's episode of the Art of Procurement podcast, Philip Eidson spoke with Samir Kushalani, partner at McKinsey & Company, about how procurement should be rethinking their current operating models to meet all of the challenges, changes, and uncertainty that are transforming their role in the business and, with generative AI, even the size of their teams and scope of their work. Let's listen.
Definitely. I think so. But I don't, it depends upon an organization's capacity to absorb change, right? So ultimately, how you get there might vary by company, right? But reimagining the operating model, reimagining the procurement function is a necessity. And I think some of the leaders, this is probably another source of daylight between leaders and laggards, right? Mm-hmm. Who are willing to jump ahead. We are seeing companies that we serve, for example, adopt the notion of agile procurement, where, again, going back to the concept of all-star athletes versus category experts, you now basically have this notion of fixed category teams that are not sized for peak load, but it's more of an agile flow-to-work model with smaller category teams that are then supplemented by experts as and when needed, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just a fundamentally different way of organizing yourselves. The notion of, I personally believe the procurement organization of the future is going to be 20 to possibly even 50% smaller, right? You'll have more autonomous buying. The whole notion of AI, Gen AI and AI agents is going to really drive a lot of digitization of activities, and not just tasks, but end-to-end processes that hitherto were being done by humans, right? The notion of really procurement becoming more of an invisible hand that's guiding the organization in the procurement things as opposed to being the executor of that, right?
Yeah.
I think that those are the kinds of changes that I can see happening, which means it's a fundamentally different model than it is today.
To listen to the full episode, go to artofprocurement.com/podcast or search for Art of Procurement and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also click the link in today's show notes.
4.
In this week's episode of Art of Supply, I covered a new legal challenge to ongoing regulations that affect the supply chain directly. If you expected the transition from diesel-powered to EV trucking to take place on the open road, think again. Instead, it looks like this systemic change will work its way through the court system. The state of Nebraska is leading the resistance to a forced transition on multiple fronts. In the state of California, with the Environmental Protection Agency, and via an antitrust lawsuit against 4 major heavy-duty truck manufacturers and their industry association. Any regulatory changes in this space, well-intentioned or otherwise, have the potential to completely disrupt both logistics and lives, and must be undertaken with a great deal of care and consideration. Listen to this week's episode to hear about recent news that may alter the expected timeline for transitioning away from fossil fuel-powered trucking. legislative exceptions that put California in a uniquely powerful position relative to emissions regulations, and the odd in-between space that the country and industry currently find themselves stuck in. To listen to the entire episode, you can click the link in today's show notes, subscribe to Art of Supply wherever you get podcast audio, or subscribe to the Art of Supply newsletter on LinkedIn.
This is Procurement 6 from Art of Procurement. To get notified every time an episode is published, go to artofprocurement.com/subscribe. 3.
In this week's episode of the Love Procurement podcast, I spoke with Amanda Christian, Senior Vice President of Contracts and Subcontracts at CACI. Amanda heads up both the sell and buy side for the government contractor, and she has years of experience navigating the requirements of GovCon, many of which just don't exist in the private sector. Amanda was good enough to really take some time and share what it's actually like to lead procurement for a government contractor, including how to meet the needs of a large enterprise or government entity while still prioritizing partnerships with small businesses and maintaining data and system security along the way. To listen to our conversation, you can use the link in today's show notes, search for Love Procurement on all major podcast platforms, or check out the iValua YouTube channel to watch us speak with video.
2.
On Tuesday, January 21st, we received an interesting update in the ongoing saga of de minimis shipping exceptions. This is the loophole, if you will, that allows companies like Temu and Shein to import packages worth less than $800 directly to consumers without going through CPB inspections or paying tariffs. The CPB has proposed taking 3 sections of tariff law and making them ineligible for de minimis. Ones where U.S. groups petition for protection against foreign competition, categories of goods that are protected as a matter of national security, like steel, and goods from countries that the U.S. believes are violating fair trade practices. This is just a proposal for now, but if it passes, it will lead to a significant shift in the U.S. de minimis provisions use. According to Supply Chain Dive, CBP estimates that 77% of all shipments covered by de minimis in 2023 would no longer be eligible. To read more, check out the link to Supply Chain Dive's article in today's show notes.
1.
Before I let you go, I want to mention a webinar next week that you will definitely want to join. Last year, we released a research report on services spend management run jointly with SAP. And late last year, we did another round of research to bring the findings up to date. We want to reflect what we learned in the first round of research, as well as to find out what procurement has achieved in the year since. On January 28th at 1 p.m. Eastern, join me as I welcome Gordon Donovan from SAP to discuss opportunities to elevate services spend management. If you know Gordon as well as I do, you know this event is not to be missed. Sign up using the link in today's show notes or by going to artofprocurement.com/calendar.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday at 6 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. If you've enjoyed this pod, help us grow and tell your peers to search for Procurement 6 wherever they get their podcasts.